talk a bit about myself then. About 13 or 14 months ago, me and another Mats, not the Mats from Avisi, we started our own company and we wanted to try more innovative stuff. We've tried some closure, we've tried some Elm, and we stuck with Elm. And we've been working about over a year and have some experiences we want to share with you about tooling. So my talk will be about building your Elm code. And in a nutshell, the traditional way of building your code is you write it, because let's say you have a form and your form is written in JavaScript or in Elm because it compiles to JavaScript. And it's a multi-step form, and in step 3 you have some weird bug or in the submit. So what do? You get the bug, you change some code, you compile it, you save, and then you reload your browser, and then you have to fill in the form over and over again until it's correct. And that takes you out of your flow. It's annoying. So it will be great if we could change our code and our browser would reload and you would immediately see the changes. This is something called hot reloading, and it's already possible in languages such as JavaScript or ClojureScript. And especially in ClojureScript, it works very, very well. There's a tool called Figwheel. I don't know if everybody knows it here, but it's making me jealous because they have so much better tooling than Elm. And one of the things, I think it will also be valuable for things like project managers or account managers. There's a very high return on investment for writing code that's reloadable, because as a developer, you change your code and you instantly see the change without having to constantly reproduce it. So we have our own company, and our time is also our money. So for us it's also important, but it's not just for the developers, it's also for a company. Very important that developers can iterate quickly, change code quickly, and it should also work if it breaks. So the current options in Elm right now are kind of limited, because you have elm make, so you run elm make on your command line and you get some JavaScript. You have Elm Reactor, so it spawns up a server that listens to all your files, and when you change and you reload, it builds your code. So there's some automation there right now in core Elm tooling, but it's not exactly that great. There's Elm Webpack Loader, and in my opinion it's the best one available right now. And there's Elm Live, which I see a lot in the Elm Slack channel going around, but I don't think it's actually that good. And I'll show this. So what's so nice about Elm Make? Well, you can put it in a makefile, and if your company uses makefiles, that's great. But it's a single compile, and then you have to go back into your browser, reload, and you lose all your state, and you have to go back to step 1 of your form. And then you have to fill all those forms again until you get to step 3, and then you realize you made the same mistake again. So there's zero instantaneous feedback in your browser, and I don't like it. There's Elm Reactor. It compiles your code on safe. It has watches running, and it also nicely spits compile errors into your browser. But it becomes a hassle to use when you have big projects that serves HTML for you, like some backend where you initialize your Elm code. But Elm Reactor needs an HTML file or a JS file, so it doesn't really work well when you have to work with Elm flags to initialize your code. And you still have to manually reload your browser, so you still lose all that state, and you go back to step 1 of your form. And the other one, Elm Live, which I see a lot, as I said, in the Elm Slack channel. It compiles your code on safe, just like Elm Reactor. It reports your errors nicely in your browser or in your terminal. it reloads your browser for you, but you still lose some state, not all. But you can, for instance, you can have your model. It will save those states, but if your model interacts via ports, you will lose that state. And say you have a pretty big Elm project that uses Elm CSS, external processes that need to hook into that. It doesn't work well with those either. It does work, but it's not as good as other solutions. And as I said, there's the same with Elm Reactor. There's some extra complexity if you serve your own HTML files from a backend, or when you have flags that you have to initialize, for instance, also via a backend. I couldn't figure it out, so if anyone here knows some solution to this, I would love to hear it, because I think it's a big minus for Elm Live. And then to the, I will say last one, because there are also other alternatives to Webpack, such as Gulp or Broccoli, all those things. But it uses the pluggable nature of Webpack, such as hot reloading and copying of HTML files. And I think that's a plus. I don't know if anyone thinks otherwise of that, because you can really build on top of Webpack as your project grows. It compiles your code on save, of course, so that's almost easy by now. But it supports reloading your site without losing any state. So even if you have something loaded via ports or something that interacts with ports, it will still keep that state. And some of the negative points would be that you require all those npm packages or via yarn. And you will have to learn a lot of Webpack to finally get to that point where you can actually reload without state loss. And there is a bug right now where you still lose application state when you run on a compiler error. So it's not pixel perfect, but it gets most of the job done. And your compile errors, if you make a compile error, you won't see that in your browser because it will still show the old JS. You will have to go back to your terminal to realize what your mistake was. But hopefully you will notice those mistakes in your editor. If not, you should be using another editor. So I will display all of these in a small demo. I have a project. I don't know why it's doing this. Well, it's really small. It's just an you can select an image.
Can you create one size of it?
You can
Yes.
zoom in with Control Plus.
Does anyone know why my screen is transparent?
You have to restart Atom. Maybe that will help.
You have to quit enable
Minimize and
Minimize what?
minimize the window.
No, it's like my entire screen. I don't know why it's doing this, but you select an image and then it displays that image and it interacts via a port. So I will show this in Elm Reactor. You run Elm Reactor. It spawns a web server. You go there and we choose index.html. So let's say we choose a file here and it displays a file. But if I want to change something to this file, yeah, 1 second. It might be because of QuickTime Player recording my screen.
Oh,
Ah. It's still recording,
Yeah.
okay. If I change some code in this while Elm Reactor is running, let's say I don't like how it's so squished, I want it a bit wider, so I change the width to, let's say, 750 pixels. I go back, and I will have to refresh before I see any changes, but I just lost my image, so I have to go back, select it again, and then I see I changed the height by accident. So I will have to undo that, go back, change the width, save, refresh, and I just lost it again. Go back, choose it, now it's good. Now I can commit my code, etc. So it's not the ideal solution. And then next up we'll check out Elm Live. So you run Elm Live by downloading it via npm or yarn, your package manager of choice. You choose your Elm file, you choose your output, and it looks for some HTML file to serve. So this is Elm Live serving it. And let's say I want to test it in Elm Live. I choose my image. Again, I think it's a little bit squished. I change the width to 750. I save. It reloads my browser, but I just lost my image again. And then you select it again. There it is. That's what I wanted. But it's not all that bad because it doesn't remember port state, but if I go back and I change something else in my model that I don't have right now, but it will reload those correctly. But it's any application in Elm that's a little serious will have multiple ports in them, interacting with your model or coming out of your model, so I don't think this is the ideal solution either. Next up there's Elm Webpack Loader, working together with Elm Hot Loader for hot reloading your code. So you start up the server, compiles your code, and then gives you an URL. If we go here and select that image again, and then we change some width, you will see that it just reloads without losing anything, even ports. And you can use this in any weird situation you want. It actually remembers, it goes through all your ports, it replays them onto the new refreshed Elm instance. So if we like add a span here, for instance, hello world, and we save, there's an error. As I said, we lose our state because I didn't put text in front of it. And then when it does compile, it does lose state. So it's not yet perfect, as I mentioned before. But when you don't make compile errors, I just removed it again, and you just saw that hello world here disappeared while everything is still in place. So let's say you were on step 3 of your form and you just changed some CSS or some model logic and you saved your file, you just don't lose it anymore, and you can keep working on it without having to go back and redo everything. Of course, Elm 0.18 has this time traveling debugger thing on the bottom, but it's still annoying to have to load those in and create those. That's the demo for now. Also, this is it's all on Git. I will share the code on Meetup, so everyone can replay that. What I used was a startup config from a user called Benancel. It's called Elm Webpack Seed, and it also has all the Webpack logic for hot reloading your Elm CSS code as well. So that works as well. So to summarize all this, I think that most of this should be in Elm, yeah, mostly in Elm platform, such as Figwheel for ClojureScript is not in the core packages of ClojureScript, but there's a lot of good stuff in ClojureScript that makes something like Figwheel possible. And in order to make something possible in Elm platform, there are some changes necessary, such as code slicing, having your dependencies in one file and having your application code in another, so you can keep changing that inside your header, for instance. And having this support in Elm platform also makes it better to hook into it via external tools. Right now we have some monolith repos where we have a backend and a front end in the same repo, where the backend serves the initial HTML together with Elm, and we inject some environment variables into that from the backend into Elm. And if I have to rely on external tools, it doesn't make it that easy for me to inject those environment variables from my backend. And I think that's a big minus. And if you want to use server-side HTML serving, you can have some external tool compiling and running that. So if you want to test that, you'll have to close it. And for development, it's nice. But once you dabble into server-side rendering, you can't really make use of this as well. There are some. There was a status update by Evan yesterday. I will bring this up because I didn't have it in my slides. I didn't have time. But he has things like code slicing. He has that ready for Elm Open 19. The ones that are interested in this could look up the Elm Dev mailing list. He's written a status report on this. He doesn't actually want to share all this work with random people. He wants to keep the mailing list strict, but it's there for you to find what's coming in Elm Open 19 regarding tooling with Elm Reactor, for instance. So he's changing that. And now I want to thank you all for listening to me. I hope I inspired some of you to actually go out and use Elm Webpack with Elm Hot Loader, because I think it's great. Thank you. Are there any questions?
It makes sense that you implement not server-side running, but uses a webpack and then the server in the back. Always separated.
No, actually for most of them, we have 2 monolith projects right now, and we just constantly run Elm make. So I went out and looked for something that can solve that for us. And eventually I ran into this, and I have a pretty sizable hobby project. For those interested, it's on our GitHub. It's regarding, I think everybody here knows Twitch. It's about getting feature parity of Twitch chat using Elm. And it uses all this of Elm Webpack and Elm Hot Loader to be able to constantly change some code and then keep all those messages still there. Yes?
Is the time traveling debugger, if you manually click like export and import, would it
It remembers
work with
it.
your code? Like this sample code that you have, yeah? The problem there was about the state of the port. So would the time traveling debugger handle this?
I don't know if it replays ports. Does anybody know that?
Yes, it does.
It does?
Yeah.
But you will still have to generate those JSON files
Yeah.
and
yeah.
import them.
So, but if we could actually automate this, then it should work without having these big external dependencies like web.
Yes.
Which
Yeah.
is like for me, it's a real drawback. I would
But
have to use Webpack.
in order to automate that process of importing and exporting those JSON files, you would have to change core Elm code.
Yeah.
And I don't think you will get that code into Elm core, because there are some very strict rules.
Mm. Okay. Thanks.
Yes.
I'm interested in knowing why, when you would not use like this solution, only if you don't want to use NPM, or is there also another reason?
Well, as I said, we inject environment variables from our backend, and if you use something like this, it gets harder. I don't know if it's possible yet in a maintainable way. So that's something that will have to be considered if you have monolith projects. That something like this will take some getting used to, and you will have to figure out how to inject those variables into your Webpack powered Elm project.
You mean like NVFile, that you inject the environment variables into your code?
Yes. Let's say your API URL. Right now we inject that via flags from our backend because it's easy. Anyone else? No? Oh, yeah.
Do you have any experience with Create Elm app? Something like Create Reactor app, but even for Elm?
I haven't used it. So, does it solve something like this?
Yeah, I think it's something like the Webpack thing, but with a single dependency, and you don't have to get around all the Webpack config things, and
It's already
done. Yeah,
So it uses Elm Hot Loader as well.
I think well.
Okay.
Like, have you used it?
Just look down at the real does.
Yeah, Elm Hot Loader. Alright, so I will add that in my comment on Meetup as well. So you will have two possible ways of setting this up. Okay, cool.
Cool, thank you.